This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio. This is the place where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love and rediscover the truth of who you really are. When people ask me why they should pay attention to their dreams, I often bring up the great accomplishments that came about as a result of dreams, such as Elias Howe's invention of the sewing machine, or the dreams that led to Albert Einstein developing the theory of relativity, and of Dmitri Mendeleev creating the periodic table of the elements. I also talk about something that's nearer and dearer to my heart, the great works of creativity that came about from dreamers like Mark Twain, Paul McCartney, and Salvador Dali, just to name a few. They were onto something, as they realized their dreams gave them access to the imagination within themselves and sparked their ability to transform those nighttime inspirations into daytime works of art. One such person is here with me today. Michael Ruby is a poet who says he describes what he sees with his eyes closed. Michael is the author of a number of books of poetry, including Memories, Dreams, and Inner Voices, American Songbook, and Compulsive Words. And he's here to talk about dreams and the creative process. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Michael.
Thanks so much for having me, Debbie. I love dreaming and writing down dreams and talking about dreams.
Well, then I'm going to ask you this, Michael. When did you first start paying attention to your dreams?
When I was a senior in college, to fulfill a social sciences requirement, I took Introduction to Sigmund Freud. And that was the first time I really read about dreams. And some months after that, I started occasionally writing down dreams. And I occasionally wrote down dreams for more than a decade after that. And then I started having these, what I would call outbursts or floods of dreams, where I might remember or write down 100 dreams in a year. And I've had a number of those in the decades since.
And when did you start writing poetry?
I started writing poetry a few years before that, when I was a senior in high school, freshman in college.
Now that you are a dreamer, does all of your poetry come from your dreams?
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I tend to write up my dreams and consider the dreams to be works of fiction, not so much as poetry. In my poetry, I have occasionally written poems that basically were, you might say, versified dreams. And I think the poetry that I've done related to dreams that's been, strongest from my point of view is where I've, instead of writing up a dream, I've taken a lot of dreams, for example, and written down for each dream, what's the moral of the dream? And the moral of the dream could be something very simple and stupid, like don't buy cheap raincoats or cheap umbrellas, or it could be very serious, wear a coat and tie at the border so you're not hassled by police, and made a poem out of these morals. I then also took the places that were in my dreams, and I made a poem out of those called A Dreamer's Itinerary. And then I took the situations of dreams and made a poem out of those. So it's been through a kind of abstracting that I've, written my most dream-related poems. But in poetry in general, I would consider myself a surrealist, which is highly related to dreams, in that I try to just open my mind and listen for whatever words are arising and write those down. And sometimes I will use a prompt to what I would call displace those words within me, such as even you, or I'm not going to think about it anymore, or the moon light on the ocean, any of those things.
So I want to go back to something that you said a little while ago, which you said that, you consider yourself a fiction writer using your dreams. Do you think that we can all be fiction writers by paying attention to our dreams?
Well, I think we all are fiction writers in our dreams, and that's one of the most amazing things about dreams. We go to sleep and we make up stories, lots of stories, most of which we don't remember, but a few of which we might. And I would even say that it's very possible that dreams are the first stories that humans ever created or experienced, because we do both create them and experience them. So yes, I think we are all fiction writers. We're all movie makers. I mean, dreams feel a lot like movies. We're certainly all virtual reality creators. It seems to me that a dream is exactly like a virtual reality. And it's interesting that we've been creating virtual reality after virtual reality in our sleep for probably hundreds of thousands of years. And it's only now in the last years that our conscious minds have gained the ability to create virtual reality or movies, etc.
Mm-hmm. It just took us a long time to make that connection, but you're true about what you said about dreams being our first stories. There's a lot of evidence. Dreams and recorded dreams have gone back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And one of the first tablets of Sanskrit that was found was when they finally were able to figure out to translate it. It was a dream.
Right.
They wrote down. So it certainly has been the case. But to do something with the stories that are in our head, we have to be able to remember them first. So how do you remember your dreams?
It is difficult to remember dreams. What's been most useful to me is when I wake up and remember, let's say, some of a dream, I will open up a notebook and just take a few notes. I mean, sometimes it's as little as 5 words. And then later on, let's say when I have a little bit of time, I will, sit down with that and write up what I remember of the dream. And usually those words, lead me to far more than just themselves. So that would be the main way. And I think also, if possible, one should write up a dream right when they wake up. That the way to remember a dream is to focus on it immediately.
Well, that is true because it lies in our extreme short-term memory. And if we don't record it, it will disappear. We may remember having a dream, but we're not going to remember the specifics of it. So you do it old school. You actually write it down with a pen on paper.
Well, or sit at a computer and type it into a Word document. I do that too. And what you were saying about dreams and forgetting them is, I almost think of them as like these beautiful soap bubbles with, multicolors that pop and there's nothing. And that's an amazing fact about dreams, that they can just disappear. And it points to an aspect of our total dream life, which is that it's the dreams we remember are the tip of the iceberg. There's 10 times or 50 times or 100 times as many dreams that we have that we don't remember. So it's a whole hidden life that, our dreams.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, I think the number varies. Some people say we remember, or we have 3 to 6 dreams a night. Some people say 4 to 8 dreams a night. It actually all depends on our sleep cycle, since we do mostly have dreams in the REM stage. Although you can have dreams at other stages, but it's mostly in the REM stage. So if you're going through a sleep cycle where you have a REM stage, you will have a dream during that cycle. It is interesting when you were talking about dreams being a soap bubble, it almost sounded like a poem.
Well, that would be a poetic image for sure. And I mean, there's a lot of possible poetic images to describe dreams. I mean, we could call it a alternate life, a parallel life, the mostly hidden life, our fictionalized life. A lot of ways to look at dreams, clearly.
Absolutely. So do you think that your way of recording your dreams differ from other artists who've talked about their processes for recording their dreams?
Yes, I do, Debbie. There have been a good number of dream books published, and different writers have taken different approaches. My approach has been what I would call a hyper-realistic approach, where I'm trying to nail down every detail and every situation as clearly and extensively as possible, because part of the reason I write down dreams is I'm fascinated by how detailed they are, how many people there are in them. But now some other writers, with a number of American writers in the Beat generation, wrote dream books or wrote down a lot of dreams. And for example, Jack Kerouac has one called a dream book, in which he says that he usually hurriedly wrote them down while he was half asleep, right after waking up. And that produces a very different kind of text than what I'm trying to do, which is to be very detailed and work out exactly what I saw and what happened. Now, another American dream writer, William S. Burroughs, his last published book is a dream book called My Education. And what he does is he's constantly expanding from discussing his dreams to going out into his life and contextualizing his dreams and showing how it becomes a way of telling about his life. And I think that's a very valuable book. There are a number of French authors who took a more poetic approach, such as Marguerite Yourcenar and George Perec and Michel Leiris, spelled Leiris. It's a book his dream book, I think, is really great. So, it's a little surprising that I, whom a poet, would take such a fictional, prosaic approach to dreams. But that's been my interest. Whereas these other writers, some of them, the dreams went right into poetry. And the surrealists like André Breton and others were very much like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to pick up more about dreams in a minute, but we're going to take a short break. We are talking about dreams and poetry with poet Michael Ruby, and we'll be right back. If you're not pleased with the trajectory of your life, the time to begin your own personal transformation is now, and your dreams can help pave the way. How? By tapping into your unvoiced confidence. What is unvoiced confidence, you say? It's the acceptance of your abilities and qualities. It's a state of mind coming from liking and even loving yourself, and feeling free to say or do anything you want without concern for the judgment of others. You were born confident, but may have had it chipped away little by little by the negative self-beliefs you've picked up over the years. If you're looking for the heightened energy, clarity of thought, and the feeling of being more alive that comes from self-confidence, you can rediscover it by paying attention to your dreams. Need some help doing this? Go to my website, thedreamcoach.net, and sign up for my complimentary dream discovery session. I can help show you how your dreams can help you return to the confident person you were always meant to be. Again, go to thedreamcoach.net. thedreamcoach.net.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're talking about dreams and poetry with Michael Ruby. Well, Michael, did your dreams ever surprise you?
Well, they surprise me all the time because I get to do things and see people and go places in my dreams that I'm not able to in reality. For example, quite often I'm able to return to my childhood home at 251 Montrose Avenue in South Orange, New Jersey. And quite often I get to see my father again, and I see my three brothers and lots of other relatives and friends who aren't around anymore. And I haven't been in Italy in a number of years, but since then I've probably dreamt I was there, 10 times. So they surprise me generally in good ways. I do have a lot of dreams that are not so good dreams, and they don't surprise me. I'm more used to those.
Do you have lucid dreams, or are they just spontaneous?
When I first started writing down dreams after my senior year in college, probably the third dream I wrote down was a lucid dream. In the dream, I was able to look at my hand, and I felt this tremendous feeling of power. And I've probably written down 2,000 dreams since then and never had a lucid dream again. Now, I have talked to people a lot about lucid dreams, and I read the book Lucid Dreams that came out around 2000. And I'm not, for some personal reason, always was cautious about the idea of trying to guide my dreams or produce a result in my dreams. And therefore, I never have tried to have a lucid dream. Maybe I ought to.
Do you think it would affect your poetry?
A lucid dream affect my poetry? No, I don't think it would affect my poetry that much. Yeah, no, I don't think so. There's other things that are close to that have affected my poetry a lot. For example, I've written 2 books, which you referred to, where I closed my eyes and described what I saw, and I was able to chronicle 2 different kinds of visions. So that affected my poetry. But I think I will probably, with dreams, continue to write down dreams as fiction, which they are. They're a fictionalized version of my life, or fictionalized versions of my life.
Well, you say you use your dreams sort of as a basis for your poetry. Do you ever interpret them?
Occasionally I interpret them in small ways, like what's the moral of the dream, but that hasn't been my main interest, looking at dreams as, revealing my psychology. Usually what they reveal seems very simple, that I like this person, I'm mad at that person, that I wish something else happened or didn't happen. So that's what I would say.
Very often when I talk to people about dreams, they say, well, we always good to take action on them. And one action that everybody could take that's very easy is just to talk about our dreams with other people. Do you do that?
Sure. I mean, for one thing, because I write my dreams down, I will often send them to someone who's in the dream, or if the dream is about that neighborhood, I will send it to them. And then another thing I did is one of my daughters majored in neurobiology in college, and she was studying dreams a lot. And then she came home and lived at home for a few years after college. And in the first year, she and I did a dream book together, where at breakfast, because she was dreaming a lot at that point, at breakfast, she would dictate her dreams to me. That obviously there were some dreams she kept to herself, and then we might have a discussion about them. And we produced a unpublished book so far of about 100 single-space pages of her dreams. So that's talking about dreams. And in our family in general, we're frequently talking about dreams.
That's what I advocate people do that. It's a lost art. What I found surprising when I talked to a man who wrote a book about Civil War dreams, and he said it was very common at that time for families to just talk about their dreams at the breakfast table, and which is why when the Civil War broke out, soldiers wrote home their dreams to their wives, and wives sent their dreams to their soldiers who were away at war, and it was just very natural to them. And it'd be nice to bring that back for everybody.
Yeah, right. Definitely. Yeah, for some reason, some people find listening to other people's dreams boring, but I don't feel that way at all myself.
Yeah, well, one of the things we say when, one popular way of dealing with dreams is having group meetings, your dream circles where people talk about their dreams, because the concept is that one person's dream is everyone's dream. And when you share a dream, even if it's not your dream, there may be something in that dream that you can relate to and can give you some insight into something that's going on in your life. So they totally advocate talking about your dreams. But aside from writing them down, having them as a basis of your poetry, and like you say, writing a book with your daughter about them, how else have dreams affected you?
Let's see. Well, as I was saying before, I don't interpret dreams very much, and unlike I know a lot of other people who are listening right now, they use their dreams to heal themselves or learn important medical things about themselves or learn about their relationships. And I haven't really gone so much in that direction myself. I'm mostly interested in just the amazing details in dreams, the communications. For example, as I mentioned, I frequently see no longer living people in dreams, and they say interesting things to me. And sometimes I feel like I am dreaming a real person's life in the past. And there's other times I feel like I'm dreaming events that in my own life that I didn't have, that were sort of just parallel to what my actual life was. And in general, I'm very interested in the idea of dreams being a alternate life or alternate lives that we lead in our sleep. That would be, the thing I keep thinking about. And the implications of that.
And you had described your poetry as being surrealistic, and some people call it experimental. In looking at your books, one of the fascinating things about it is the way the words are spaced on the page. You may have them, in columns or parallel, or it's even one word on a page. What does that mean, and what do you want your readers to get from that poetry?
Well, that itself is part of a tradition in poetry that's been going on now for more than 100 years. First started by the French poet Mallarmé in the 1890s. And people have taken advantage of the possibilities of spacing words on the page to direct the reader in their movement through their page, to create nonlinear works where readers, instead of necessarily reading from left to right, sometimes read down and sometimes read across and sometimes read diagonally, or have a choice in how they're going to read the page. So one is able to accomplish a number of different things by spacing things out. And as I said, since Mallarmé in the 1890s, there have been great poets French poets like Apollinaire, who with his colleague Gram, worked with pictures on the page. And it's definitely part of a movement of a sort of slight merging of poetry and visual art, which continues at a massive speed today. So it both alters the way that one reads visually. It alters the pacing of a work, and by putting spaces, pauses throughout the page, and it gravitates towards a hybrid work of literature and visual art.
I have to ask you this. People who are listening to this on the podcast or on the radio show won't see it, but you've got a beautiful painting behind you. Is there some significance to this painting?
Yes, it's a painting of the mouth of Frenchman Bay in down east Maine by a young Maine artist named Alice Jones. And I myself, not my last book, it was called The Star-Spangled Banner, a familiar topic. But my book of poetry before that, which was published in 2019, is called The Mouth of the Bay. And that's a book of poems, all written, sitting, looking out, basically at that exact view across the water towards Acadia National Park.
I could see how inspirational it might be. Which brings me to this. Your daytime job is as an editor at the Wall Street Journal, which involves critical thinking and hard and fast rules of language and format. And I think of that as sort of being the opposite of, the poetry that you have. So how do you align those two different parts of yourself?
I consider them to be opposite activities or close to opposite activities within language use. I mean, they are both uses of language. So in that sense, they're in the same genus, let's say. But I do consider them to be opposite activities. And people sometimes ask me, has working as an editor of U.S. political stories and newspaper stories in general had any effect on my poetry? And the main effect is, I would say, it's caused me to be clear. I mean, you might laugh at that, having read some of my things, but in journalism, we want to be clear. We want to be understood. And in poetry, we don't necessarily want to be clear, and we don't always necessarily want to be understood, but it's always a worthwhile goal. Clarity.
Definitely. How can people find out more about you and your work?
Well, a lot of my books are available on Amazon.com. They're available at Small Press Distribution, SPD. Everything is in print. I think I have a Wikipedia page that would link to a lot of my ebooks, such as my ebooks called Close Your Eyes, in which I described what I saw with my eyes closed. Or I have another ebook, Titles and First Lines, which is a big long poem, which has those columns of words that you were talking about. So those would be some ways.
Wonderful. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today.
Thanks so much for talking to me about dreams today, Debbie. It's been great.
Oh, well, thank you. We've been speaking with poet Michael Ruby. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If you have, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio.